live studio. If you can't tell, I was chanting the Kanye West "All of the Lights" song a little bit earlier. Banger for those of you that like a little bit of old school Kanye. And of course, thank you to all the people that have been reaching out, trying to get um, some information on things and knowing what to be doing next, really, and what to be doing to take the next steps here in terms of all things health. I'm just pulling up the live on my computadora for us to get all into here, and probably something that I'm looking to do is specifically came from a YouTube follower that I have. They requested that I do even longer videos and then have little 10-minute, 20-minute blocks at least once or twice a week. So if you got some suggestions on what you'd like to hear, I think my first one is going to be on fatigue because a lot of people go through that. Um, so I will prepare all that stuff up and make it look nice and pretty the way this beautiful live is looking. I'm trying to line myself up because I got both TikTok and YouTube after YouTube gave me some warnings and they get so for like the past 2 weeks I have not been able to post or do anything on YouTube, which I thought it was one of the more free speech platforms. Unfortunately, it is not. So, but hey, we're still here, right? Thank you everybody for liking it up. As you're popping in here, let me know where you're from. Um, maybe a little bit about you, at least for most of you guys that know. I start off most lives on a little rant, basically letting you all come on in here and talk about the day. Really, I spent for some of you that saw me go live this weekend, I was up at a cabin in New York State, so upstate New York, by the Catskills there. If anybody's familiar with that, I know we had a couple people that were familiar with that area, and there were some viewers joining from the area of upstate New York. But yeah, it was wonderful. Guys' weekend, basically did all fun things, cutting wood and clearing trails and doing all the dirt bikes and quads and all that cool stuff. So, but now we're back in New Jersey and waiting to hear back on the lease for our location to be setting up for the Wellness Way office. Um, but yes, been cranking out videos, been doing a bunch of training, getting a lot of the trainings done. Um, Reading through some articles, looking at varicose veins, just because more and more people have been reaching out about that in particular. So trying to cover all the beautiful stuff that you guys request me to do. So wow, look at all these people popping on in here. What's up, everybody? Like it up, share it up. Let's get a bunch of people in here, and um, let's start answering some questions. And we'll see how YouTube does. We'll see if we're outlawed or not. Not that I really care. I'll go right to Rumble. So YouTube, if you're listening, I will go right to the Rumble platform, and it'll probably be great. So they do wonderful things over there. All right. What else? What else happened? What are you guys doing? Let me know. I know we got Susie's been in here the whole time. Susie, how we doing? Miss Dawn, I think I've seen you in here before. Actually, let's open everybody up. Yeah, Dawn. Oh, myself is in here. Look at that. How do I see more stuff? Hello, Kai Gentis. Where you from? Where we viewing from? Um, for an 8 p.m. almost, it's this slow, to be honest. Usually by now, it's just flying. But look at that, right from YouTube. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your. I was talking about headaches and how practice when you have headaches and things like that, doing some electric. Of course, I have YouTube open right here. Just kind of curious to see how far. But yeah, then actually the week before I got a warning. I forget what that one was about. I think it was about using colloidal silver nasal spray when you got a stuffy nose and things like that. Just some easy, simple things to do when you or initially get sick. Um, but then, yeah, that was the first warning, and then a week later or 6 days later, got a strike. So, but with my liver and body cleanse detox, but it needs to be done at the right time. I know way too many people on here that are jumping right into a detox, and it's like, oh my goodness, let's slow down a little bit because you're not going to feel too good if you're just going from ground zero, jumping right to a detox. Get inflammation down, we got to rebuild some tissues there, then prepare for a detox, get all the food and pantry and fridge ready, and then jump right into it because we have basically a whole book that you follow and everything where you're doing essentially red meat for a month and your body break out of the fatty loads that it takes in, just because common practice and things. But great thing to do for weight loss and just pushing things, getting fat tissue down and getting a lot of that toxicity out of the fat cells, which is where we store them. So, um, but yeah, basically days 1 through 10, you're not doing anything associated with meats. No chicken, no fish, uh, no red meat, and then eventually transition day 10 to day 20 or day 11 to day 20, just allowing fish. And then the last 10 days, it is fish, chicken, and obviously you can do a lot of the plant stuff too. There's some restrictions on different things that you can do there, but feeling great. Wonderful. Well, I hope we have a jolly good show tonight. And obviously, in preparation for the office opening, I'm going to basically give some value to some lucky winners today and offer them a read on their labs and what testing they have done already, and then show them, okay, here's exactly what I would be doing. If you were a family member of mine, this is exactly what I would be. So, whether it's future testing, food structuring, lifestyle means, supplementation, handouts, free guides, all the cool stuff. Which actually, I have to respond to this email too. So let's do that. Almighty hell. What credit card should I get? I mean, that's kind of up to you. You know, not that they're, it depends. I mean, really, the only time you're going to get picky with a credit card, I feel like, is for a business purpose. But if it's just personal use, figure out which benefits make the most sense to you. If you're a traveler, look for traveling traveling credits and things like that. Um, yeah, I mean, pay it off immediately. That would be my best advice. It's not to stack on credit card debt because there's like first all that. Thank you. I will consider this. I appreciate the honesty. Oh man, almighty hell, you're all the way up at number two. Dang. Lord Bolt, what is going on? We got some returning viewers in the chats. We got 9 people sitting in here. I guess you guys are just waiting for other people to ask questions. Um, number two, because I'm the shit. That's pretty good there. I'm surprised I didn't say that or come up with that. All right, Mr. Nick. Oh, doctor. Hello, Mr. Nick. Just got some blood work back. What's your thoughts? Wow, what's your thoughts on total T3 of 85? I mean, in general, that's not too bad. You really want to see something like T3 total in the upper 2/3 of that range there, as a general rule. So depending on where you were last time, that's really what I'd be most curious about is what improvements have we made, what drawbacks are there, where's more work needed still, and I mean for your case in particular, I know that you're doing beautiful stuff, and it's now keeping up with that support of the liver and then combating those mental stressors, because that will do more damage than you think, even guys and gals. I love my stress herbs; those are like the best things on the planet. Um, I just don't think humans were meant to kind of live the lives that we do. So Laura, appreciate the honesty. What is the best supplement used for hormones and menopause? Probably one of my favorites, black cohosh, just because it makes a lot of the estrogen receptors really sensitive. And for women that are in menopause, full blown, ovaries are no longer contributing to hormone production there. Your adrenals are going to really take the brunt of things. So if you can sensitize some of those estrogen receptors and get more use out of the hormones that you're already creating, you can have some reductions in the hot flashes and drop some of the weight there too, because nobody likes tacking on weight just because of menopausal reasons. But weight, which there are some, um, we're all perfect and in range. Beautiful. Yeah. And T3 really upper two thirds. Oh, before it was 68. That's a little bit low there. Um, but all my liver enzymes were perfect. And the AST and ALT and creatinine. That's actually a good thing. Don't let it confuse you. Um, because if your liver enzymes are looking nice and pretty down there in the 20s, then hey, we're not doing kidney damage or liver damage or heart damage and breaking tissue down. So that's good. It's those markers are really looking for damage. It's less about functionality in a sense with those ones. Um, so yeah. Mm. Cortisol was still high at 22. And Cheryl, I will get to your question in 1 second. Um, we're just kind of in the middle of it with here. Well, slightly high, 22.7. Yeah. I only woke up 45, okay, minutes or an hour before the blood work. Okay. So there's that too. Because when you wake up, it's really going to be the highest. So, but cortisol is really only one marker. I like seeing metabolized cortisol a lot. And I like seeing cortisone. Because now you know with that metabolized cortisol throughout the entire day, how much are we creating and pumping throughout the body. So for some people, they can have beautiful cortisol rhythms. They can have great cortisol and blood work, but then seeing a metabolized cortisol, it's like, oh my goodness, this is way too high, way too low. So that gives you way more insight into that. But it's probably safe to do something like an adaptogen. That's why I love the ashwagandhas in this scenario because we know that there's some thyroid things going on there too. There's an adaptogen in the middle there that can skew whichever way. That's the cool part about herbs is they don't work like medications. They don't force things to happen that the body already has all the reasons for. Say a woman is like androgen dominant and she's got a ton of testosterone or DHT, she's not going to have more of that going on when you start taking something like ashwagandha. It just that doesn't do that. They don't force things. But Miss Cheryl, do you think long term? Oh, here we go. We're getting into some trouble tonight. Do you think long term use of Monroe is safe for weight loss from obesity? How do I put this here? Benefits and consequences to most things that are available there, whether it's natural, whether it's medical. I can't tell you what to do with medication. Let me be very clear there. Um, Do I think that there's other things? 100%, especially if you've already lost all that weight. There are beautiful ways that you can. She let me know that she lost 10 pounds in less than a week just by targeting the right things. And that was already after working for a long period of time. So we're getting to deeper and deeper layers there. I don't think that there's enough testing done traditionally or conventionally by most docs. And that's because insurance kind of handcuffs practitioners to running certain things. Um, so, Cheryl, if you do have labs that I can look at and kind of look for some clues in there, and if we do have to run more, I can point you in a direction and just give you a full layout of what you should be doing in the meantime, whether that's supplementation, food, exercise, all the things. Woo woo, 10 pounds down. Heck yeah. So, but In terms I would just turn to the studies on these things, because they're starting to come out more and more. Is the DSM-5 accurate? I mean, you're typically going to see that used in a medical realm. Um, so, like, it's not my job to really diagnose more things like that, because you're really referring to more psychiatric things there. I want to figure out why somebody's neurotransmitters are being thrown off, whether that's from crazy amounts of mental stress, which happens to pretty much every patient I've ever interacted with, or if there's chemical toxicity there, if there's overgrowths or infections in the GI. You can have massive impacts on somebody's mental health from just recovering from the GI. Um, and I mean, my own personal story, and many people that I've come into contact with too, and I've been seeing this a lot more and more, is just very low amounts of normal commensal bacteria, which you do not want low because it's kind of like a garden in your belly. So the belly is kind of like a garden in the fact that you have weeds, you have mulch, you have good soil, and if all those things are not balanced out, you're going to be promoting some overgrowth or getting parasitic infections if that stomach acid's low and you can't absorb your foods, you can't break them down as much. Um, but even doing something like fermented foods, getting some good probiotics into the system, you can have a massive impact on mental health. Um, Also, too, something like a Dutch test. See certain pathways in the body that are connected in other places. We're looking at liver dominant phase one pathways with that Dutch test, but there are other areas of the body that use those same pathways, which is why you have side effects when you take something because it's not just impacting one system. Um, but yes, you help children with learning disabilities, of course. That's how the Wellness Ways began. Um, really seeing Down syndrome, autism patients come in, primarily kids that were coming in. Um, so there's that. And we got our first hater. Welcome, welcome. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, that's how the company started. And you see great impacts on kids because they don't beat their bodies up. They don't drink and smoke and work a 9 to 5 and have a mortgage and all these bills and stressors that are constantly interacting with you. Even a relationship can be a stressor at times. So for kids, focusing on their food and like I was talking about earlier with or just looking at their immune responses and calming that nervous system down, their body's going to start to heal itself and it needs to based on the constituents that you provide. Oh my goodness, Sydney, look at that. We got our own community fighting back. I love it. And yeah, I get disagreed with all the time. It's nothing new to me. We have two books. I disagree, and I still disagree that the Wellness Way has put out. But this person asks, why do chiropractors think they are doctors? Um, just to clarify, look at the title of my name in this live, Dr. Antonio Eduardo DEC. So Doctor of Chiropractic. And what chiropractic is basically mental, chemical, and physical stressors that throw off your physiology and eventually lead you to a state of adaptation. And it really is all adaptive physiology at the end of the day. And your nervous and immune systems are the only primary systems in the body. And they are the only two systems that not only respond, but also coordinate the other systems based on those three stressors: mental, chemical, physical, or thoughts, toxins, trauma, same thing, just different verbiage. So yeah, now you start to look at taking X-rays, listening to that patient, and not just interpreting them as a lab, but hearing their story and what they've gone through. And honestly, it's kind of sad because most people don't find me first. They this is like the on their journey to get, um, which brings a great segue to the next point. What is health? Health is how well your body's functioning. So if you're constantly going through different stressors, you're not going to function very well. Um, and that's going to impact further things down the road. And like I said, with the adaptation means there, your body creates adaptations to the internal and external environment. So, what is a condition, a disease, whatever? It's an adaptation. If you didn't have a cancer tumor, that cancer would have already killed you. But your body's isolating all these cancer cells into one spot, called, by the way, so that your immune system. I look at more of what makes you healthy and how to get back all that function so that you can have a healthy body, not what do you take because of a lab value or what do you take because of a condition. I think that's the flawed way of thinking that honestly the natural world falls into too, and it's very easy to fall into um, that little box there because you think, okay, I have a headache. What do I do? Because this headache, and I need something to take it away. And I get that. And there's definitely things that you could do in the short term, but why do you have chronic headaches coming back over and over? Because if you stop taking something and all your stuff comes back, did that really service you in any way? And shouldn't your care get cheaper and cheaper over time? And shouldn't you see the doctor less and less over time, not the other way around? So we can disagree though, Mr. Descartes 6760. Um, but I will YouTube stuff now. Oh my God, Laser. Hello. Hey Doc. Nas, what is up? I haven't seen Nas in forever because I've been banned from YouTube. Not banned, but I had a little strike. They gave me a little slap on the wrist for for getting too sassy, I guess. I just had my gynecomastia surgery a month ago. Feeling great now. Well, I'm glad you saw some benefit there. And there are definite times that you do need surgery. Um, I think it's kind of, silly to get so into the natural world that you're just saying, hey, all I'm going to do is listen to natural people and never see a medical provider. So I'm kind of sitting here right in the middle. How are you, Doc? I'm doing pretty well. But this time it's act. But I'm doing. Just got back from upstate New York. Sorry for those that were in here a little bit earlier, but I want to say it's almost a year now. So good little community forming on the YouTube island. Now that we're back and we no longer have okay, TikTok is going here because it's called the Doctor of Chiropractic. Yep. And then says TF is a DC. And then they say, is that a Latino DO? That is so funny. That is hilarious. Um, it is not a Latino DO. It is a chiro. I'm a chiropractor. Um, but what is the topic? It's kind of all things health related. And I was saying this a little bit earlier. This was a request from one of my YouTube people, but they were saying they want to see 10 to 20-minute longer form videos because I do a lot of short form, just from I'm just clipping them up from the health questions that you guys ask. And then if you do need more attention and help, I give you some good value and free guidance there. Done. And give you the steps to take there. But the topic, kind of whatever you choose at this point. Do you know what do you know about the benefits of matcha? Is it good for you? I think matcha is amazing. I think people do it a little bit too close to meals, which it can inhibit some of the iron absorption from some foods. So you can, if you're already very heavily plant based, you can kind of run into some issues with anemia, especially for a cycling female too. That's just a whole nother aspect of losing more red blood cells from the menstrual cycle. But I love matcha and all things green tea because they have great, not just for the caffeine benefit, but it's just not a lot of caffeine, and you have a lot of L-theanine in there too. So, I mean, really, from a matcha perspective, you're getting the caffeine, but also a stress-reducing constituent in there too from that L-theanine. So, people that just don't handle coffee very well, I invite them first to switch the quality of coffee that you're doing, and then if you do want to do something like matcha, heck yeah. Or if you just want to do matcha, regardless, by all means. There's just watch how close to meals that you're doing that. That's the only drawback, and make sure you're getting good sources of the. That's always going to be a thing. But Ariana, good question. Agreed. Yeah. We're in upstate New York. I am in Plattsburgh. Plattsburgh. I was in um, Dilla. It's kind of a smaller, very, very small town, but in Oneonta County. And but yeah, went to a little cabin, did some quadding and doing guy stuff, playing with cool toys, cutting grass, doing that sort of thing. And it's nice. It's kind of nice to get off your phone, to do a digital detox, which I think people do not do enough. Um, the phones are just robbing us from neurotransmitters at this point, just stealing dopamine like crazy because you just do thumb exercises all day long. And it's tough to get out of, especially if you're living in kind of a hustle bustle city environment where that's just kind of how you connect with everybody and keep up with all the things. But long term, I think you rewire your brain in ways that you don't want to do. So, close to upstate New York myself. We got a bunch of East Coasters in here. It's kind of crazy because these lives push you all over the world. So, oh wait, we got some YouTubers. I was thinking of getting a genioplasty and jaw sculpting next year, but kind of scared. I'm recessed and want to look good and breathe better. I actually had one person or one patient that her jaw was connected to so many things. She had this special mouth guard, and because of her jaw issues, basically, not only did she have deviation, but there was also a very underbite present there too, and had this cool designed mouth guard from her dentist, which was very tricky. She had to kind of dial this thing in, and when she would get it too tight or too loose, she would have horrible nights of sleep. She would have gallbladder pains, digestive complaints, and all these things that came down there through, whether that's from nervous system involvement from close tissues nearby or from the mental stress that it did to her overnight, having that disrupted sleep too. So there's also that at play. But how has it already been a half hour? That's crazy. Close up see myself. Did you use the liver glandula? Heck yeah. We got some glandular fans. And then I love matcha. Oh, they say I love matcha. Heck yeah. How can you not love matcha? I mean, it kind of tastes like dirt sometimes. So there's that. Um, but not all the time. So, and you can dress it up nice. You can put some non-dairy milks in there. You can do some protein in there. Cover the taste up. A little bit of honey. Using liver glandular side effects with I'm about doing an organ meat. Would be like you have very, very high iron and ferritin. You don't need to add more iron-rich foods there. But aside from that, you just basically taking the best multivitamin that the planet has ever seen. So if you want 15% off, let me know. Send me a message. I will help you out there. Is the DC in your name the state or a license? That is a license. I'm not in Washington, D.C., if that's what you mean. I'm in New Jersey, back here at home in New Jersey. All y'all coffee lovers should try Normatic Movement on YouTube. I've never heard of that guy. Are they a matcha lover? I'm going to ask you a question. Are they some matcha lovers? I'd be cool or interested in watching some of that. I'm always get more iron. Well, hey, like I said, don't drink the matcha too close to meals. You will inhibit some of the absorption there. Um, but making sure you're doing good stomach acid support too, because that allows you to get more absorption of that. And not only things like iron, but, and you could tailor your foods to get a lot of these things too. Doing a lot of meats, particularly red meat. But stomach acid is going to help you out there a ton, and doing something like an organ meat in the form of liver. Or, I mean, if you're really struggling, you could do something like immune glandular and have like spleen in there too. So, all right. I've been ignoring the YouTube comments, so I'm going to let the TikTok ones build up, and then we'll rapid fire through some of those, um, and then we'll get going. What else are you doing on the live? Just fielding all things health questions from you guys, um, whether a lover or a hater. So some people love it, some don't. Hey, you are allowed to do whatever you want there. Thoughts on carnivore diet: meat, organs, fruits, raw honey, fresh milk. In terms of fresh milk, I assume you mean raw milk. And that's it. I love something like that in the beginning. However, I think you are missing a lot of fiber and what plants can offer there. So people don't realize that once you prepare foods enough, because I understand all Saladino's talking about. He's the carnivore MD. He's the guy really promoting a lot of the red meat based foods, a lot of the organ meats, and basically everything you just listed there: fruits, organs. He even throws eggs in there now too. But if you go back and watch the progression of it, he really only started with meat, and then he went to organ meats, and then he allowed dairy in there, and then he allowed eggs in there, and then he allowed fruit in there. And he was doing lab testing all along and seeing some deficiencies come up, getting heart palpitations sometimes, and not getting enough potassium rich foods in, which things like avocados, beet greens, dominant in things like potassium that you will never get from something like doing carnivore. Do I love carnivore for getting sugar down and just eliminating a lot of things? Yes. Over 3 months, I don't like it. And I do think you are missing a lot of fiber there. So I'm a huge fan of steamed or pickled or fermented veggies because I think that that's how food was prepared all of rest of humanity. And once you start looking back at what we used to do, there's a lot of truth to it, especially when you start looking at the studies for all these things. So um, now I will put my email in the chat here if I can. Can I do that? Maybe I have to do that from my desktop. Either way, I see we got people jumping in here. Let me scroll back up and say what's up here. Okay, carpal tunnel. Let's go back. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me just do this first. I'm trying to do too many things at once here, people. Sorry for the delay. Okay, here it is. Jeez. Let me make sure I spelled everything correct there. All right, there you go. Some stuff here. All right, now we're back in the swing of things. Any side effects? So cool. What's a DC? I don't think I answered that one. Doctor of chiropractic. Not just basically isolating to, honestly, is what the medical profession has basically allowed us little chiropractors to do. We are not just back pain doctors, focusing on the physical stressor side of things, which it does great things. You can have effects body wide because you're affecting the mechanoreceptors within the spinal column there. That gets transferred up to the cerebellum. That goes through different centers of the brain. And can you have effects on mood? Can you have effects on some visceral tissues? Yes. But can you pinpoint where that nerve impulse is going to go? No. Um, as a general rule, it's like a that. But then there's the chemical and mental stress that is also part of our philosophy and degree there too. There's just a big misunderstanding with what we do. So yes. Anyways, We got the nomadic movement on YouTube comment. We got the question. Are you a doctor? I'm a doctor of chiropractic. Tips for headache at night leading to nausea. Hmm. I'd be curious if this is around any cycle times, but I love things like Albesia. I love things like electrolytes, obviously. Enough hydration for crying out loud. I don't think people drink enough water. I'm always telling people to drink enough water. In fact, I should be drinking more water, but I love something like Albesia just to start off nice and simple. And the electrolytes are a beautiful thing to be doing too. Are your supplements standard process? No. Really, the only reason for that is because standard process does a lot of blends. And they put a lot of additives in there too. And all their herbs are in capsulized forms. So I don't like that. I think you miss a lot. Well, not think, but you miss a lot of the constituents by doing encapsulated herbs. So those should be in liquid form. Um, and then how these things are prepped and the farms they come from, the parts of worlds that they come from, we just had to isolate that. So that's why we just use the wellness way um, strictly. So whenever I find something that's maybe more affordable for somebody to swap with, I just let them know. Like if there's good protein, good colostrum. I know we don't have a colostrum. Um, there's great brands that you can be doing there. Ooh, any advice on carpal tunnel postpartum? So if this is from fluid collection there, leading you to be a little bit swollen, um, and you have already had the baby, you could do something like Albesia and dandelion root, which you can get a lot of diuretic effects with that. There's also a lot of B vitamins with dandelion root as well. So that's the cool part about liquid herbs is that you're not just getting the herb itself, you are getting a whole slew of different things. So like for vitamin C in there, and then all the constituents that are studied, and you could look this up PubMed and see the different pathways that they interact with. Great for the upper GI, which can definitely lead to not just phase two, but phase one and phase two, which definitely during pregnancy, you're going to have a lot of compression within the upper abdominal cavity there, which is why I went to dandelion root, and you have the diuretic effect there too. And you can also regulate a lot of blood pressure with things, and it helps with regulating some of the mood there too, especially if you're feeling uh, tense or temper driven in a way. So if your temper's a little bit spicy there, you can have some regulation there. And Albesia is just a powerhouse for antihistamine benefits, but there are connections to how well you're regulating sugar. And if you can't regulate sugar properly, then you could be holding on to fluid from that too. So that would be a different story. So why don't you doing more B vitamins and things like that? So like a whole B vitamin complex that you can do just to help with the nerve endings there and the or just go to a chiropractor, have um, adjustments to the extremities there too. Where was the stomach acid? Okay, let me go back to here. Does vegetables like broccoli or any others I'm not aware of that people eat every day to turn toxic in the stomach? I don't know if this makes sense, but just ask. Uh, can cannot. So it depends on how you're preparing that food. And when you steam broccoli and when you roast broccoli, properly prepare that food, you're not going to have that same reaction. Are there some people that will have a ton of blood? It is a GI issue. That is not a vegetable issue, um, although it may look that way. But yeah, it kind of depends there. But and you won't have that same issue. But that's kind of why I disagree with a lot of the carnivore only stuff because I do think you're missing a lot that plants can offer there. Which, hey, And then I can't eat that much red meat. So for people that do struggle with a lot of red meat, I'd be curious if you were ever bitten by a tick, because that's a common allergy that you can have. Just feeling really yucky after having things like beef and bison, boar, elk, venison, all those things. Uh, so lime that can play into this, or maybe it's a texture thing, or just how you grew up and kind of a how you're wired, which that's cool too. That's why something like a liver glandular in a capsule, oh my goodness, you will be getting all the beautiful benefits to that without having to eat red meat. And then moose, stomach acid support, question mark. TF are you talking about? Do you even know? My goodness, guys freaking out over here. So I mean, yeah, stomach acid support, great thing to be doing. Mental stress suppresses the heck out of stomach acid, and that's why we see a lot of, especially pretty females, are going to have a lot of GI complaints because for some reason they tend to stress out more. um, Not just good-looking females, but all of them. I just kind of said that as a joke too, because there's a lot of truth there. But supporting stomach acid, you get way more out of your food, um, and then you prepare kind of like an assembly line for that GI tract to have a good um, not only motility but also signaling to the pancreas, to the small intestine there too, and basically most of your food absorption is within that um, small intestine. So if you can prepare a lot of that and also signal to the gallbladder there too, you can help with glucose regulation. You can help with um, getting more from your food, so more protein, more B vitamin absorption, more iron absorption. You can kill off a lot of the overgrowth too from being stressed out over time. A lot of the yeast that overgrows, the bacterial things, the parasitic, you're doing raw fish or having a lot of meats. So there's great benefits to supporting stomach acid, but when you have people that are just stuck in that medical mindset here, you can't see eye to eye. Although I could explain the physiology behind it, and we're not going to get anywhere. So I guess keep swiping. I don't know. That's kind of my best advice to you. Keep swiping. All right. I appreciate you. You're very welcome. I appreciate you too. Go to US Medical. If you could get in, go to med school. I would never want to go to med school. I don't want to practice medicine. That's why you hear me talking about herbs and tinctures and apple and getting stressed down, um, because medicine has drugs and they have surgery. And you see them once a year, and there's no accountability. And there's nobody coaching and talking you through these issues. So, yeah, we can disagree. That's cool. You do allergy testing all the time. I think that's a great starting point for a lot of people because you can just know and have for sure what allergic responses you have, what IgG and IgE, and what to be avoiding and what to be including. So, can cortisol be high if you worked out the day before and the day of the test, little water and wake up? Yeah, you're going to see that with overtraining. A lot of that is a stressor to the body. So you're going to see, like if I smash your toe and then we take your blood work, guess what? You're going to see high cortisol there elevated because that's what it does, partly. So there's that, but I think that's partly why that happened. All right, I'm going to jump to the bottom here. Oh, wait. Short tea before, sorry. I don't know if you answered. No, that's cool. But that can definitely influence it. Um, but times you went to bed, when you ate, when you worked out, that all is at play here too. And then Jack says, stay in your scope. I have not talked about a single medication or a single surgery. So I am in my stressors and how to combat those stressors, how to promote normal physiology. So, by what your statement is, you think chiropractors can replace modern medicine? Hell no. I think that if modern medicine vanished tomorrow, people would be dead like crazy. So, I think the craziness comes with people going all the natural side of things and never ever seen another medical doc. Really dumb. Because if you have a very bad strep throat infection and you try and do all the natural stuff, and that infection moves to your kidneys, to your heart, and you can have very effects from trying to just do something natural. So there's a time and a place. Um, I'm more of somebody that medicine alongside of it, more of a co-managing standpoint, because a lot of people say, "Hey, I want to get off of this thing, a medication that was prescribed by your doc, um, but hey, we're going to do everything natural and take labs throughout the process every 3 4 months, so that you can take those normal labs and show them how things are going, and then they can adjust dosage and do the things that the medical profession does." So yeah, I think people get too crazy on, and this you see in all areas of life. You see this in talks about money, you see this in talks about politics, you see this in so many different things. And I think the internet just kind of splits people into two parties just because I think it's kind of designed in that way. So there is that. But yeah, I'm I'm right. If there's a fire, call the frickin' fire department. Don't call a dentist. That's really dumb. So, but again, if the fire's out and you just water down the house every day, you know? So you got to flip that around both ways, because I think we got to rebuild that darn house. In this analogy, your body's the house, right? Um, and I do a lot of rebuilding. That's why we kind of call ourselves carpenter type of doctors, because we're just focused on rebuilding, getting stressed down mentally, chemically, physically, covering deficiencies, removing toxicity out of the body, and using labs throughout that process so that we know exactly what we're doing and when to stop. Because the whole goal of care is to get out of care, to get off of all your supplementation, to get off of all these things. Um, but is it for everybody? No, not everybody likes it, which is fine. Which is fine. There's room for all of us as long as we stay in our lanes. Boom. That's why there's these professions. Um, what's a really good example? I guess yeah. If you had a heart attack, if you're having a heart attack, go to the freaking hospital. Don't try and take a magical herb. There's no magical natural cure. There will never be a natural cure to anything. I think that's a really flawed way of thinking, and it's just the natural world trying to copy what medicine can do, because medicine can change physiology. They can force it to do things, which you do want. If your blood pressure is way, way too high, we need to bring that down. Should that be the only thing you're doing, though? That's where I disagree. Um, so, aside from that, I want to basically regulate everything so that people can return that blood pressure. And I've actually done this a bunch, to where people start getting their blood pressure back to normal. And because they're still taking a blood pressure med, they have low blood pressure now. So, at that point, when I'm like, "Hey, are you getting dizzy from standing up? How things are going with the blood pressure readings?" And they're like, "Doc, it's very low." Um, Guess what? Immediately, hey, go back to your doc, show them this. Let's communicate on these things, and they can adjust things. So exactly, Vic. And then the Vic says, "Thank you, Francis." Got some emojis. My daughter has bad cramps. Why? There are gonna be a lot of things there. Um, I think people abuse sugar. I think people don't get enough sleep. I think people don't get adequate testing, like for where those hormones are going. So you can be building up a ton of testosterone, a ton of DHT, having cysts form, and not properly ovulating in those things. So in that sense, you want to get full blood work on female hormones. You want to see some other things in there too, and you want to get something like a Dutch test done so that you can know production and conversion. Um, but I've seen plenty of cases to where it's not a hormonal problem. And like I was saying earlier, the nervous and immune are the two primary systems of the body and always have are always dealing with something. So whether they're conscious or unconscious, controllable or uncontrollable, you're going to constantly bat stressors. It's finding what those stressors are, getting adequate labs, supporting with nutrition, and doing some supplementation until you can come off of those things. Going for a jaw surgery is a good plan or is it too risky? Got to start looks maxing and health maxing. Um, I don't know. I don't really know too much on that topic at all. I'll be flat out honest with you. Um, if you're doing it because it's something that you need to do to better your health, I think that is a very smart way of thinking. And I've seen cases where people's jaw is impacting breathing at night. They have to use a CPAP. They can't properly open the airways. And it's like, hey, there's structural causes here. There is no supplement that is going to open your airway more. So in this case, yeah. I was safely able to get off blood pressure meds with diet and weight loss. Look at that. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Taking matters into your own hands. Is POTS autoimmune? There, there's yes. I think that there's a lot of deficiencies there too. That's kind of why I hesitated for a minute. Um, I see a lot of deficiencies, and I see a lot from the COVID era, which this might be the time I get my next YouTube strike. We'll see though. Um, so yeah, potassium citrate, very very deficient. That I see extremely common with POTS types cases. But really, I don't want to focus on a diagnosis. I want to focus on the different stresses that affect people because when you're in that framework, you're trying to look for something that's going to combat this condition, and that's not how it works. Especially not with the natural way of doing things. But there are deficiencies and there are immune factors that your body cannot get rid of. That's why I mentioned the COVID era. If we know where I'm going with this, and that is a major immune stressor that affects the heart, that affects um, the liver, that affects the way you handle mental stress, that affects everything because you basically took a viral protein and introduced that into a basic medium right into the bloodstream, and it had no way of denaturing that protein down. So this is where, yeah, it's a little controversial, but I will flat out tell you my opinions here um, and what I've seen in daily practice. So I would look for COVID antibodies, and I would probably get something like an immune panel done. I would get some food allergy testing. I would start doing something like kinase and potassium citrate, and you will see some change there. But send me a message if you have labs already. That way I can kind of see through where things are going wrong here. But what auto antibodies could be linked to POTS? I see I see COVID antibodies linked to that all the time. Um, I know it's controversial, but I really do. But can it be reversed even if it's autoimmune or remission? Yeah, you can get to a place to where your body's not running around throughout the bloodstream, basically attacking everything, which it's not a mistake that you're autoimmune. It happened for a reason. Um, it will be kind of a lifelong practice, and people that are autoimmune are going to have to be very strict and very adamant about their discipline and their behaviors because the second you start going off on those things, guess what's coming back? Um, but yeah, I've seen people have great benefit from checking allergic responses to food, checking out the GI, running something like an immune panel so that you can look at natural killer cells, you can look at B cells, you can look at T cells, um, and seeing, okay, what aspects of the immune system is being affected here because it doesn't have to be one or the other. Um, I haven't seen parasites linked to it, but okay, I gotta verify this really quick. There we go. But yeah, um, why is it lifelong? Because once your body goes autoimmune, it is I've never seen it completely go away. I've seen it kind of, like you mentioned, the remission thing. I just hate that word. Um, I've seen it kind of go dormant, if you want to use that. But the second you pick up the bad behaviors, it starts coming back. So it kind of depends on what's leading up to this response, why your body's adapting in this way, or why your body's having trouble adapting to things like postural changes and just radically throwing blood pressure all over the place, having palpitations like crazy. I think supporting stressors, ashwagandha, potassium citrate, doing something like natal kinase, and then getting some blood work done, depending on what you have already, you can start to move in a very good direction here. Um, but yeah, there can be several links to that, and that's fairly new there. Probably the immune memory. I mean, yeah, um, more like dysregulated memory there because it's just an over attack. If kind of speak in layman's terms here, but going for jaw surgery. Oh, I said that one already. I'm a video editor. Oh my goodness, that is super cool. Well, hey, you have my email now, so send me an email. Let's get to chatting. 'Cause I hate editing um, videos for hours a day. It's horrible. So, why don't you like the remission word? Because when I see people use that remission word, they kind of just let everything go off the rails again. Um, and I've seen that with many different diagnoses, and people are like, "Okay, I'm in remission now. It's all play," and it's like, "Oh no, you need to keep that up because we're not out of the woods just yet." But it's just me being picky there, a little OCD showing. Heck yeah, man, send me an email. All right. Can antibiotics throw you into an autoimmune scenario? If it's like a straw that broke the camel's back scenario, possibly. If you got rid of enough of your own commensal bacteria in that process, I've seen that a bunch. I've gone through that too, really from being a wrestler for over 15 years when I was younger. So that was kind of my story, just taking antibiotics over the years from skin things that go on, and it beats the heck out of your GI. Um, I don't know if you're in a full blown autoimmune state, um, but there can definitely be immune triggers that are at play here. And will there be side effects to something like an antibiotic? Yes. Is autoimmune one of them? I don't think so. I could be wrong on that too. Is autoimmune the only type of disease that will never fully go away? I mean, yeah, autoimmune is once you got it, you're autoimmune, but you can basically get things back to ground zero by getting all the lifestyle and the food things in order and supporting those different stressors that I was talking about earlier. But if you don't have labs associated with those things, we're kind of flying blind. That's why I love looking at immune panels. I love looking at foods. I love looking at stress hormones. Um, and then somebody said, at Lily, ask your physician. Hey, she's coming from a physician, by the way. There's no way that none of these people have never seen a doctor before. They've seen practitioners for years and years and years and years, and issues have not changed or got worse. So, nice advice there in the chat. All right. They said they'll email me here for the people that are looking for whether it's help with just reading labs, knowing what to be doing supplementation wise, things with your food, things with lifestyle, trying to get some free guides here. Let me know. Send me a message. I'll be happy to look over the things. There's no cost associated with this. And yeah, we can basically get a good little action step list going for you and individualize these things. But I'm probably going to wrap things up here. Um, oh, just saying the antibiotic question. Yes, I agree. Totally. Totally. All right, folks, we did a nice little power hour for the night. I'm going to be signing off. We will be back tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a little morning live, kind of depends on the schedule and things here. But beautiful stuff, people. And like I said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Send me messages if you've got additional questions. But YouTube, do a little peace out.